Hello, Vanessa, Aminata, Melissa, Jennifer, Joanne, Danielle, Veronica, Tiffany, Beth, Candace, Ruth, Bambi, Christina, Nicole, Ariana, Maria, Letitia, Amanda, Natalia, Gazelle, Joe, and Karen. Thank you for another excellent week of discussion in week 4. A lot of great comments, a lot of good back and forth. Let's just dive right in. I appreciated Christina starting us off with a well articulated, very strong position about the situation. She clearly expressed that she found Kevin's behavior annoying. And when I asked for some clarification, she said that he was indeed insubordinate. Jennifer agreed that Kevin was very entitled sounding. Aminata agreed with the word annoying. Tiffany used the word that she was irritated with Kevin's behavior. Several others of you agreed that Kevin's behavior was unacceptable and that he was acting in a way that showed clear disregard for the business's well-being and for the owner's instructions. On the other hand, Bambi said, I think Kevin may think he's helping the business. Joanne said, I wonder if Kevin received proper training. I mean, after all, this is a small real estate company. I wonder how much training a receptionist gets when he's onboarded to the organization. Nicole said, my belief is that he may be coming from a place of goodwill. Vanessa said, I can see his behavior as one that he may think he is doing the right thing. And Beth saw this as a coaching opportunity because although he had not apparently listened to the owner's instructions, his heart is in the right place, Beth said. And even though Beth saw that Kevin was not only perhaps disregarding the owner's instructions, but that the bigger thing was that he could be putting client information at risk. It's not just the cost of the paper and the ink and perhaps the lost opportunity cost of somebody using the phone and the customer not being able to get through. But perhaps the most significant problem here is that Kevin may be exposing confidential customer information to people who are coming into the office just from the community, just coming in off the street. And that could be very problematic. So we have two different approaches here, the same set of facts. But I think that's the thing that we need to do in a situation like this is clearly identify what the facts are. And this process is from a book called Crucial Conversations. It's a very helpful format for having a conversation with someone in a high stress, high stakes, high emotion situation. And the first thing to do is to identify the facts. And in this case, we don't have a whole lot of facts. We have the fact that the owner spoke to Kevin and said that he should limit the use of the copier and the phone by people from the community. That's the key word there, limit. The owner did not say that Kevin should forbid people from the community from using the office equipment. The owner did not say, Kevin, do not let anyone who is not an employee use the copier or use the phone. Those were not the instructions. He was told to limit the use. That is ambiguous. What does limit mean? Does limit mean that somebody could come in and make 10 copies every day? Does limit mean that somebody could come in and make 1 copy a week? We don't know. It's not specified. It's not clear. The fact is that Kevin received an instruction, but it was an ambiguous instruction. The fact is also that Kevin is allowing people to use the equipment and that this will have some small cost to the business. Again, I think we need to dig a little deeper to see what the facts are. But I can tell you, not hypothetically, but in actuality, since I manage a small office, that a copy will cost between 5 and 10 cents for the cost of the contract with the copy company, the ink, and the paper. the toner and the paper. For most copiers, if you have a business copier. If you're using an inkjet printer as a copier, it's going to be a lot more expensive than that. But let's assume that it is a regular office quality copier that we're talking about here, and that it's 7 cents a copy, take the mid-range. And as I said in the discussion forum, 7 cents a copy, let's assume 100 copies a week. So that's $7 a week, $364 a year. If $364 a year is going to break your real estate business, you've got bigger problems than people using the copier. So I think just to look at the facts, is this a huge expense? Not a huge expense. The bigger problem might be the potential exposure of confidential information. But again, we don't know what the situation is and if this is really a risk. If Kevin has his little receptionist office and the copier is in his little receptionist office and no records are kept in that office, might not be a big issue. We just don't know. Again, our facts are kind of limited. Fact, Kevin was spoken to. Fact, he was told to limit. Fact, the cost of these copies is not exorbitant. So we look at the facts. Then we interpret those facts. That's what humans do. We interpret facts. We tell ourselves a story about Kevin. And some people in the group interpreted Kevin's actions as reflecting an entitled attitude, as reflecting somebody who would not listen to authority, somebody who is even insubordinate. That's the story that was told. Other people looked at those same facts, and the story that they told was that Kevin's trying to do the best that he can. He's trying to build goodwill in the community. He thinks that he's doing the right thing. That's a different story. And notice, depending on what story you tell yourself, you're going to feel very, very differently about Kevin. And I think this is where Brene Brown's insight comes in a very helpful way, where she says, assume that people are doing the best that they can. Assume that people are trying to do the right thing. And I would add a corollary to that. Assume that people are doing the best that they can, but also assume that they can be helped to do even better. Right? So Kevin is doing the best that he can. Let's assume that. But his actions are not acceptable. His actions are not what we would require as the owner of the real estate company. So we assume that he's doing the best that he can. He's trying, but we also assume that he is capable of doing better if he is offered correction and instruction and encouragement and given the tools to do better. So we take a look at the facts, we see what story we're telling, and then maybe we reinterpret that story based on this principle from Brene Brown. Or we could even use another principle from our course, a principle we talked about quite a bit. Do to others as you would have others do to you, so that we treat someone the way that we would like to be treated. If you were making a mistake, if you were in a position where you were doing something that your boss didn't want you to do, how would you like your boss to approach you? Approach Kevin in the same way. So you have the facts, you have the story, and then the next thing is to act, approach Kevin. So to tell Kevin, look, Kevin, I asked you to limit the use of the copier and the phone. You've continued to let people use the copier and the phone. Perhaps I wasn't clear. What we really need to do is stop people from using the copier and the phone, not only because of the cost, but also because of the possibility that people could see confidential information. I'm wondering if you're listening to me and able to hear me when I say that. Do you think that you'll be able to restrict the use of the copier and the phone to employees of our company. And then Kevin can respond and he'd say, well, I really don't think this is a problem. And you could have some back and forth and clarify to Kevin why this is a problem and why the use of the copier and the phone need to be restricted to the employees. Or perhaps you have a conversation with Kevin. It's pointed out that this is really a marginal cost. It's pointed out that he is being very careful that there's no confidential information left lying around where anybody could see it. And this really does build a huge amount of goodwill in the community when we let the newspaper guy from next door come and use the machine, because then he tells people who come into his newspaper store what a great company we are and recommends us, and we get business that way. Maybe we say, Kevin, maybe this isn't a bad idea. As the owner, maybe they say, maybe this isn't a bad idea. We are open to the possibility of something different. I think that's another key thing as an ethical leader, to tread lightly and to be open to the possibility that our first impression that Kevin's insubordinate, that Kevin's not listening, Kevin has a bad attitude, that might not be right. But we're open to the possibility that Kevin is doing the best that he can and that he can do better, and maybe even that there's a third possibility for benefiting the business that we hadn't thought of yet. So thanks again for all of your excellent contributions. I really appreciate your honesty and your willingness to go back and forth and your respect for one another. Great stuff. And if any of you would like a copy of Crucial Conversations, reach out to me and I will get one into your hands. I hope that you're all doing well. Any questions, any comments, please be in touch. Have a great week.